Good morning everyone, I am Fatima Guerrero, a BS Agriculture student, majoring in Animal Science, and today I'm gonna tackle about the Republic Act number 1556 of 1956. So why was RA number 1556 made? We all know that the country, the Philippines, has not been self-sufficient in many agricultural commodities, especially in the livestock sector. So with the growing population and the demand of the people, Philippine livestock subsector urgently needs to boost and reboot. It has received limited attention and developmental assistance from the government because the major focus of the day has been mostly on rice and corn on that specific year. The occasional but limited of livestock dispersal programs have not been sustained. So budget support for livestock has been averaging at only 2% of the yearly appropriations for agriculture. The Department of Agriculture has not been created a broad-based, organized, and competitive livestock industry in the country, except for those of a few large corporate livestock venture. The Bureau of Animal Industry, or BAI, has not been focused on its developmental support functions. In fact, it was created in 1933 or 1930 with the primary goal to investigate, study, and report the cause of dangerous communicable diseases and the means prevention, and in general promote the development of the livestock industries, dissemination of useful information on all essential matters regarding domestic animals. And so the subsequent legislation and administrative orders give the agency and additional rules such as the Republic Act number 1556 under the Presidential Decree number 34 to regulate the granting of tax-free importation for breeder animals. That's why Republic Act number was born. It was known as the Act to regulate and control the manufacture, importation, labeling, advertising, and sale of livestock and poultry feeds. It was amended by the ESB number 627 and was enacted by the Senate and House of the Philippines Congress assembled and approved on June 16, 1956. So this act is divided into 12 sections. And today we're gonna talk about this different sections of this certain Republic Act. Section 1 of 1556 or Republic Act number 1556. This act shall be known as the Livestock and Poultry Feeds Act. Section 2, enforcing officials. This act shall be administered by the Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources through the Director of Animal Industry. And Section 3, it has definitions. For the purpose of this act, the following term shall mean: letter A, Secretary, means the Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Letter B, Director, means the Director of Bureau of Animal Industry and Livestock. Letter C, means and include horses, cattle, carabos, sheep, swine, rabbits, poultry, and such other animals or birds as the Secretary may, from time to time by regulation, prescribe. Letter D, feeds or feeding staff shall embrace all such articles to be used as feeds starting to supply proteins, carbohydrates, fats, minerals, vitamins, antibiotics, growth-promoting factors, whether identified or unidentified, and or correcting nutritional disorders. Such articles may be locally produced or imported, mixed, or in the form of simple ingredients, provided, however, that the following excluded: number 1, whole seeds or greens unmixed. Number 2, fresh grain, roughage, and unprocessed liquid milk in all its forms. 3, dried and ground hays and straws, dried and ground corn stalks or other parts of the corn or corn plant not included in the green. Rice hulls, cane sugar, bagasse, dried beet pulp, oat hulls, barley hulls, oat byproducts, sorghum plant byproducts, and flax plant byproducts, cotton seeds hulls, bean hulls or mungo bean hulls, buckwheat hulls, cocoa shells, or other materials of a similar character. Letter E, owner, is the person, firm, partnership, cooperative, association, or corporation applying for the required registration under this act, or any person or establishment actually engaged in manufacture, importation, distribution, and sale of livestock and poultry feeds. Brand means any distinctive mark or name applied to a feed or feeding staff. Inspector is any person authorized to enforce provisions of the act. Package means sack, bag, barrel, bin, or any other container for feeds. Label means and includes any written, printed, or graphic matter attached or affixed to any package, bale, or bundle of feeds. Regulations means rules prescribed under the authority of this act. Analyst means any official, analyst, appointed or designed or designated as such by the Director of Animal Industry for the purpose of implementation of this act. Ingredients means any single articles of feed or feeding staff which enters into the composition of a ration, concentrate, or supplement. Mixture means any combination of 2 or more feed ingredients used in the manufacture of feeding staff. Concentrate shall apply to feedstuffs low in fiber and high in digestible nutrients. Roughages shall include dried and ground hays and straws, dried and ground corn stalks or other parts of the corn plant not included in the green, dried beet pulp, oat hulls, barley hulls, clipped oat byproducts, sorghum plant byproducts, and flax plant byproducts, cotton seed hulls, buckwheat hulls, cacao shells, grain screening, or other materials of a similar character. This shall not include adulterated feeds or mixed material that is proven injurious, damaged, or of no food value, or any substance has been added thereto, thus increasing its bulk or weight or reducing its quality and strength. For purposes of this act, a mixture of 2 or more mixed feeds of different formulas of brand with intent to sell is also considered adulterated feed. So, there is a corresponding meaning, corresponding laws, corresponding responsibilities that an entrepreneurs or ang manufacturer ang magpalitay bahog nga dapat nilang isunod. There should be they should follow the regulations that this Republic Act stated. It was emphasized not to adulterated feeds. Kunya si adulterated feeds kay kanang mga feeds nga ginasagulan. For example, ginasagulan og mga materials which is injurious, makadaot sa hayop para lang mubugat ang mga timbang. For example, ang other nga mga, if you happen to encountered such situations nga nagpalit mo bahog sa mga agri-vet supply and then natingala mo nga naisagulansang or mga daot-daot nga mga subsidu nga gisagol sa bahog, that is an adulterated feeds. Example of an adulterated feeds, makadaot sa quality sa bahog, makadaot sa hayop, and makadaot pud sa strength sa kanang nutrition nga gihatag sa particular nga feeds. That is considered as an adulterated feeds. So if you encountered such a situation, pwede na siya nga airport kay against na siya sa law, against na siya sa this Republic Act number 1556. So let's proceed to section 4, which is registration. So any person, partnership, firm, corporation, or association desiring to engage in the manufacture, importation, sale, or distribution of feeds or feeding staffs shall first be registered in the office of the Director of Bureau of Animal Industry. So, in section 4, nakabutang diri nga dili pwede nga mamaligya lang ka og bahog without a proper getting the license from the Bureau of Animal Industry. You should have to register first, ayha ka mag-manufacture, ayha ka mamaligya og bahog. And that is within the section. Letter B, application for registration or annual renewal thereof shall made by person, partnership, cooperative, firm, corporation, or association, marketing, manufacturing, importing, and indenting, or distributing such feeds or feeding staffs, or any accredited agent in such form and manners as may be prescribed from time to time by regulations. Each type or kind of feed or feedstuffs manufactured or imported shall be registered separately. So, diri no sa kani nga section sa section 4, letter B, tanan nga feedstuffs, tanan nga kind nga feeds gimanufactured sa inyong company needs to be registered separately. Katong mga feeds or mga feedstuffs nga ginabaligya within the locality, within the country, lahi siya registered sa imuhang gi-export nga feeds. And letter C, an application for registration shall be accompanied by registration fee or 5 pesos for each store registered by a person, firm, cooperative, partnership, corporation, or association engaged in retailing commercial feeds or feeding staffs. 50 pesos for distributors, 100 pesos for local feedstuff suppliers with gross sales of 100 pesos or more, 200 pesos for local feedstuffs, indentors, and 300 pesos for manufacturers of commercial feeds or feeding staffs. This registration fee shall be payable at the option of the person, partnership, firm, cooperative, corporation, or any association engaged in the manufacture, importation, sale, or distribution of feeds or feeding staffs, reckoned from the commencement of the current semester, and when either at any time abandoned, the registration fee shall not be exacted for a longer period than to the end of the semester, provided that those who elected to pay the registration fee in full shall not be entitled to a refund of fee corresponding to the unused period for which the fee had been paid. So, in for application of registration, dili siya ingon pa refundable. If nakahimo na ka ato and nakapay na ka, di na nimo pwede kwaon ang imong bayad. Okay? Siya nga letter C sa section 4, kung naay usa ka negosyante nga nagparehistro and then nakabayad na siya, di na siya pwede nga mag-refund bisan pag gusto niya within the end of the semester. Okay? And also, the registration, you should do a registration by January or July. And that's the month nga ilahang istorya. So letter D, no needs or feeding staffs in the form of complete mixture, concentrate, supplement, or ingredient which have not been registered with the director shall be manufactured, imported, advertised, sold, or offered for sale or held in possession for sale in the Philippines. So let's be clear about this. Kung wala na rehistro gikan or wala na aproban gikan sa director, kaning feedstuffs, kung wala na aproban bisag unsa nga feedstuffs nga wala na aproban sa director, dili siya pwede ibaligya. For example, wala gitugot nga magbaligya og sago. For example, kana siya wala siya gitugot nga maligya og sago for feeding sa imuhang mga manok or mga baboy. Kay dili magyud na siya para feeds. Okay? So dili na siya pwede baligya. Or mga, for example lang, wala gitugot or wala nahatagan og approval ang imong corn, crack corn or smash corn. Di siya pwede ibaligya sa market sa Philippine market. And that is the law. So letter A, no commercial feeds or feeding staff shall be registered. Number 1, if the brand thereof is identical or will likely to be confused with another brand already applied to a registered feeding staffs. So this, we all know as mga nag-raise og mga livestock, specifically poultry and swine, nga usahay ang mga brand, for example, Pilmeco and Green Hills. There are certain types of feeds nga maglibog ka kay magkapare-pareha og nawong. So, in this case, kini nga Republic Act, nagabawal ni siya og baligya og magkapariha nga bahog. Nga pwede nga ma-confused ang mamalitay. Okay? For example, ana is ang baligya nga 7 kinds sa Pilmeco and 7 kinds sa Thunderbirds. Di ba magkapare-pareha? Pero ilang gyapon gibaligya because that is the face of the 7 kinds feeds. But here ang giingon dere nga dili siya pwede ibaligya kung naay magkapareha og nawong nga maka-cause og confusion sa imuhang mamalitay. And number 2, if the specific name of each and every ingredient of mixture based on concentrates and supplement if not clearly stated. Kung dili klaro ang gibutang sa label sa bahog or label sa sako sa imong bahog, dili siya pwede baligya. 3, if the feeds of feeding staff do not conform the provision of this act. Kung dili siya sakay sa provision ani nga act, dili siya pwede. So let's proceed to F. No change in a brand of a registered feed or feeding staff shall be made without a written notification to the director. So we already tackled this earlier nga kung walay approval gikan sa director, bisan pag-unsa nga mga bahog or feed staffs, dili siya pwede adto sa market, Philippine market. Letter G, the director may suspend subject to the rules and regulation promulgated for the implementation of this act. The registration of any feed and feeding staff which is found after proper investigation to be not in conformity with the provision of this act and registration, importation, manufacture, distribution, labeling, advertising for sale, unless subsequent production is proven to be innocuous, harmless, and in accordance with the quality standard for the particular product set forth in the registration under this act. Once suspended, a formal investigation should be conducted thereon by the committee created for this purpose pursuant to Section 5 of this Act. But the action of the Director of Animal Industry may be appealed to the Secretary of Agriculture and Natural Resources. Adulterated feeds, damaged or injurious feed shall be impounded, and the subsequent manufacture thereof prohibited by the Director of Animal Industry, provided further that when there is a reasonable cause to believe that certain feed or feedstuffs are damaged, adulterated, or injurious, such feed or feedstuff shall be immediately impounded, and portion thereof sold to the public be retrieved by and at the expense of the manufacturer, importer, or retailer upon notice of the director of the animal industry. Now let's review for a better understanding. So this letter G here, director of Bureau of Animal Industry, take note of that. Pwede niya i-impound ang imuhang baligya if ever na siya makita nga mali. Kung nakakita siya nga mali ang imuhang gigamit nga materials, mga feedstuffs, materials for manufacturing of the product, importation, labeling, nakagibutang sa sako, or ang usa ka manufacturer nagbutang siya label nga naa ang ingredients pero wala sa sulod, or wala sa sulod pero naa ang ingredients, pwede niya nga impound. That is the rules of this Republic Act. Pwede impound sa director kung makita niya nga na feeds na ay naisagol ang imong mga feeds nga mga injurious materials, makadaot. Since dili man ka pwede nga mag-manufacture, dili ka maghatag og brand, dili di mo pwede nga magbuhat ka og brand without a proper inspection from this director or from mga tao nga gikan ani sa Bureau of Animal Industry. So makita jud pag naay mali, dili na siya pwede ipadayon. I-impound na siya sa director, makahimo ang director ana, and you have to pay the fees. Kaya kung dili, sirado ang imong company. And letter H, the director of animal industry of his duly authorized representative shall have the power to investigate the source and or distribution or retailers of feed ingredients such as rice mills, corn mills, flour mills, cassava mills, fish mills, meat mill, apple leaf mills, and such other mills that manufacture ingredients used in compounding of feed or feeding staff, and to require them to register under this act. So, that is also that sum up sa ako ang gingon ganiha. And that is the end of section 4. Now let's proceed to section 5, labeling. Every package containing feed or feeding staff shall be labeled as follows. Number 1, the original label or tag of imported feedstuff shall remain attached to each package. In the event that the original label or tag has been lost or otherwise removed during the transit, a new label or tag shall be attached with the approval of the director to all bags intended for sale. Have you noticed nga kung mamaligya og bahog na adjud ang tags? Nanay siya naka-attach nga small papers sa mga sako. That is a tag. So, kung mawala na siya, required good sa mamaligya ay nga ibutang na siya balik. During sa transit during sa travels. So, ibaligya gina. I mean, di ba, purag makaingon taog, not necessary. Dili malitaw na mo ibahog, but that is also important to regulate this act para ma-implement ni nga act nga maayo. So number 2, every container of feed or feeding staff manufactured and or distributed shall have affixed thereto tag or label on a conspicuous place on the outside thereof containing a legible and plainly printed statement certifying nagpatunay nga nagid siya naagay mga ingredients nga nakabutang ato, sakto ang ingredients, sakto ang label, and sakto ang pila ang kabugaton. Now letter A, and section 5 number 2, letter A, net weight in metric equivalent of the contents. So tama dapat ang label, kung 50 kilos dapat 50 kilos yun. The name and brand of trademark and nutritive purpose. Ang brand, kung Pilmico yun. Kung Thunderbird yun. And that nutritive purpose an ang imong bahog baligya, either for fattening, for growers, or for pre-starter for bactin. Okay? So, dapat yun, ang iyang nutritive purpose nakabutang or tama po siya. Letter C, the name and principal address of the manufacturer or a person responsible for placing the commodity on the market. Dapat nakabutang. And the minimum percent of crude protein, minimum percent of crude fats, maximum percent of crude fiber, maximum percent of ash, maximum percent of moisture, maximum percent of mineral it contains. In the case of mixed feeds containing more than 5% of mineral ingredients, the maximum percent of calcium or phosphorus. In the case of feeds or feeding stuffs intended to be used as feed supplements or premixes for which special qualities are claimed, such as vitamins, minerals, arsenicals, surfactants, unidentified growth factor hormone, antibiotics, and amino acid contents, and definite guarantee relative to its quality. Dapat nakabutang dyan na siya. Letter L, the registration number of the particular kinds of feeds or feeding stuff, the accepted or official name of each ingredient used and manufacturer, and the percent of such ingredients as corn cobs, oat hulls, rice hulls, barley hulls, mungo bean hulls, cocoa shells, or similar materials when such constitute a portion of a feed or feedstuff in qualities in exists of what is normally found in such feedstuffs. Diba? Dapat nakabutang jod. As I said earlier, na dapat tanan nga ingredients nakabutang gid ini. Nakabutang yod sa sako, and also tanan ingredients dapat present pod sa sulod sa imuhang sako. Any feeds or feedstuff containing a substance which is toxic or poisonous if consumed in quantities greater than recommended by manufacturer shall be labeled that the user will be warned of the toxic or poisonous effects resulting from feeding such excess quality. So, kung naay nakabutang, for example, let's say, sobra na siya og oil, sobra na siya og carbohydrates para sa imuhang manok or sa imong baboy, dapat nakabutang dara. Naka-state gyud diha nga, these feeds na ani siya ingon ana nga percentage para makabantay ang mga malitay or mga growers or mga nagpatubo sa ilang mga hayop. Kay aron dili makadaot sa hayop pod, makabalo na sila daan nga kana di ay kay inani di ay ni siya. So dapat i-minimize na ko ang gamit ani. Okay? Dapat nakabutang na. So letter P, any feeds or feeding stuffs containing a non-nutritive substance which is intended for use and diagnosis, cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease of any function of the animal body shall be labeled to show the amount of such substance present, directions for use, and any necessary warning against misuse. Letter Q, control number, code number, or batch number and date of manufacture. Of course, there should be a manufacturing date and expiration date. Nakabutang sa sudlanan. Okay? Now, number 3, labels of local grains or their byproducts, minerals, and other ingredients sold or to be sold for feed shall show conspicuously and clearly. So, nitwit, dapat nakabutang name of feed o sa pangalan, conditions, ang class, ang name of address of the store, ang registration number sa store owner. Dapat nakabutang. So, dili lang manufacturer, no? Kundi ang registration number sa owner sa tindahan nga imong gipalitan. That should be on nakabutang sa iyang sudanan, sako. Number 4, labels of any other feed not covered in the preceding paragraph shall be made according to regulations, which from time to time may be prescribed by the director with the approval of the secretary. So, Section 6. Proceed to Section 6. There should be created in the manner authorized by law a separate division, known as the Animal Feed Controls Division, in the Bureau of Animal Industry, and providing possessions thereof for purpose of implementing this act, in so far as registration inspection, sample collection, and field investigation are concerned. The sum of 500,000 pesos is hereby authorized to the appropriated out of any funds in the National Treasury not otherwise appropriated for the organization and operation of the said division during its first fiscal year. Such sums as may be necessary for its operation and maintenance in subsequent years shall be included in the annual General Appropriations Acts. In Section 6, there should be created in manner authorized by law separate division. Bot masabot nga kaning para mahimo gyud ni siya, para mahimo gyud ning ang kaning balaod maayo ang iyahang pagpa-implement. So dapat gyud ang kaning Animal Feed Control Division na siya'y separate division para ma-implement ni siya nga balaod. So, Section 7. The director and or his inspector shall be permitted at all reasonable times to enter and inspect any premises and or conveyances in which feeds or feeds ingredients are sold, produced, processed, transported, or held in possession for sale or distribution when he has reasonable cause to believe any feed or feeding stuff is being prepared or has been prepared for sale and may open any package containing or supposed to contain any feed or feeding stuff and take therefrom samples for analysis without cost, and shall likewise be permitted to inspect only records or documents which are necessary in verifying the volume of production and or importation of proper assessment of inspection fee as provided for in this act. Okay? For the explanation of this, okay, kung magnagali maabot nga ana sa inyong tindahan, so they are really permitted. They have the rights to inspect sa inyong mga baligya, to inspect your products, to inspect your kanang bahog. They are allowed, they are permitted by this act, this law nga musulod sa inyong tindahan, manglantaw sa inyong bahog og naabay mali og okay ba, og maayo ba siya, o pwede ba siya ibaligya. Naagi na siya rights ang mga inspector ani or the director himself nga magbisita sa mga manufacturing company. Okay? But they also have limitation because kung ang ilaha lang pwede nga lantawon sa inyo ha is gitugutan lang sila nga maglantaw sa inyo ha, maglantaw sa records or mga documents about sa pagbaligya sa inyong bahog, nga necessary lang ha, dili na sa uban pa, kung dili related lang, they are allowed to enter in your premises, enter in your company, enter in your store or Agri supply store nga to inspect sa mga records sa mga bahog, and that's all. Moro na ilang pwedeng antuan, pwede i-inspect, wala na ilain. Okay? Related lang sa bahog. And aside from that, pwede na ninyo silang ireklamo kung mulapas sila. Pero pag naapaan na diha, kana pang line of premises, bahog lang, record sa bahog. So, wala dyan mo mahimo diha. Palantaw na lang, okay? So, Section 8, Regulations. The Director, upon recommendation of the Advisory Committee created under Section 5 hereof, and subject to the approval of the Secretary, shall promulgate rules and regulations. Letter A, prescribing the basis under which grains and their byproducts may be classified. B, providing for preservation or false and or misleading claims that may be made for any feeding staff. C, prescribing the definition and uses of such terms as complete ration, concentrate, supplement, and or base as such as used in livestock nutrition, deficient, damaged, adulterated, and injurious feeds to livestock and poultry, and such other terms as may be necessary in clarifying the intention of this act. Letter D. Prescribing procedures for impounding, condemnation, and or disposition of deficient, damaged, adulterated, and or injurious feeds or feeding staff, provided that the disposal shall be at the expense of the manufacturer, importer, distributor, or retailer concerned. E. Prescribing methods for collection and analysis of samples. F. Requiring the services of licensed chemist and veterinarian or animal nutritionist by manufacturers of mixed feeds in connection with the analysis, tests, formulation, compounding, and mixing of feed and feeding staff, and to prescribe such other rules and regulation as may be necessary to carry out the purposes of this act. And letter G. Prescribing methods of chemical and biological tests for determining the purity and safety for feeds and feeding staff, and prescribing rules and regulations for the supervision and control of said testings, and each requiring the publication of results of any analysis and test of sample feeds and feedstuffs collected from feed ingredients suppliers and feed manufacturers. Said publication at least 3 times in a calendar year, preferably in January, May, and September, should specify both which are in compliance and not in compliance with the guaranteed analysis or quality standards set forth under this act and act or under the rules and regulations promulgated thereunder. For regulations, for explanation of this, tanan mga prescription, tanan nga mga bakak, tanan nga about aning feeds, na siya mga gipanghimo nga mga prescription methods. Okay? Definition and mga services nga kinahanglan nga buhaton sa mga inspector para lang ma-regulate ni siya nga balaod. So, they are required to inspect your company, inyuhang baligyan nagbahog, and everything nga related sa feeds. Okay? And about sa mga, okay, bahog ra gid ni siya, bahog. Okay? Na sila ginabuhat 3 times a year, na sila ginabuhat nga inspection sa inyuhang tindahan. So, kung naay masakpan, well, naana sila mga chemists nga gipang talaga ani just to inspect sa mga adulterated feeds, okay, sa mga makadaot. And if you encountered nga mga maligyaay nga badaot og mga bahog, so pwede sila gyud nga airports. This is the acts nga naay katungod nga mo report sa mga mamaligyaay o bahog nga makadaot sa mga hayop, mga expired, na mga sagol, and everything, okay, nga bad para sa mga hayop. This is the act you're looking for. Now, Section 9, Fees and Expenditure. Letter A, Section 9, aside from the registration fees as provided in Section 4, subsection C of this Act, there shall be collected an inspection fee at the rate of 20 centavos per metric ton of all complete mixed feeds, supplement, and or concentrates. For this clarification of this subsection C, okay? Tanan or subsection A in Section 9, Aside from registration fee nga imong ginabayran pagsulod nimo, during sa inspection naapo na sila gina-collect nga inspection fee. Every metric ton you have to pay at 20 centavos. Letter B. All fees, charges, and other income derived from the operation of this act shall accrue to the Philippine Livestock Promotion Fund as provided in Commonwealth Act numbered 118 as amended, and shall be deposited with National Treasury to the credit of the said fund, provided, however, that 80% of said income shall be set aside and spent only for the maintenance and improvement of services and laboratory facilities in the Bureau of Animal Industry needed in the implementation of this act, and for training and research directly relevant to the implementation of this act. So, all other expenditures necessary to carry out the purpose of this act, including all expenditures for the advisory committee created under Section 5 thereof, shall be paid from the unallotted balance to the Philippine Livestock Promotion Fund created under Commonwealth Act numbered 118 as amended. So, in Section 9, kaning Section 9, tanan nga nabayad sa mga manufacturer and mga retailers and mga sealer of bahog, okay, they are put in a good use para ma-regulate yun ning Republic Act. So, walay dapat ika-problema. Kay tanan man inyong gibayad, buhis, mga fees, registration fees, for the purpose of regulating and improving the improve ni nga act to help the people pod for agriculture, for this kaayuhan, kalambuan sa kaning ato ang livestock sector. So, number 10, Section 10, Offenses and Penalties. Here we come. And subsection A, it shall be unlawful for any person, partnership, firm, cooperative, corporation, or association to engage in the manufacture, importation, sale, or distribution of feeds or feeding staff without having first registered in accordance with this act in the office of the Director of the Animal Industry. So, as I've mentioned earlier, nga kung wala ka na rehistro, dili ka pwede nga mamaligya o bahog. Dili ka pwede mag-manufacture, dili pwede magmaligya kung wala ka na rehistro. And that is what is written in this law, in this act. Let B, any firm, partnership, cooperative, corporation, or association of its president or general manager or any person which will unlawfully use a registration number, fraudulently lessen or adulterate the feeding value of any feed or feeding staff, or tamper with packaged feeds or fraudulent purposes, willfully removed, alter, or effaced the prescribed tags, labels, markings, or other information placed on package or feeds or feeding staffs, fraudulently alter or use certificates of analysis of any official analyst, willfully obstructs, hinder, resist, or any other way oppose dispossession of feeds placed under detention, imports, manufacture, distribute, advertise, sale or offer for sale or possess for sale any feeds which does not conform with or contravenes the provision of this act, or otherwise violate any provision of this act, and the rules and regulation issued thereunder shall be punished by a fine of not less than 1,000 pesos or by imprisonment of not more than 1 year and 1 day, or by both in the discretion of the court, aside from the fine imposed in the court. I said, as I mentioned earlier, tanan nga mulapas sa balaod, tanan nga mamaligya nga wala nakarehistro, nga nakaregister daan sa Bureau of Animal Industry, tanan nga nag-adultered, nagdugang sa bahog nga makadaot, nagkuha sa mga tags, labels, giilisan o ilaha. Okay? Tanan nga mga fraudulently acts will be imprisoned 1 year and 1 day, and aside from that naapagay fines. Okay? Or depende kung unsa ang hatol sa korte. In Section 11, all acts or parts thereof or inconsistent with the provision of this act are hereby repelled. So, by means repelled, tanang bayad, tanang mga fraudulty, tanang mga dili maayo. So, dili gid pwede ani nga act. So, pwede kang priso and okay. Pero to siya, mapriso ka, makabayad. So, dapat gyud nga magtarong gyud og bamaligya. Section 12. The last section of this act. This act shall take effect 30 days from the date of its approval, which means it was approved on June 16, 1956. The 30 days after July 16, 1956, it was approved and was implemented and was used. Okay? And so that's all for today. Thank you for listening. And mabuhay, Caraga State University. Thank you very, very much. Good morning once again.